My father never spoke about living in Hollywood. I believe he would have pointed out, as we were driving from either New Lambton to Wallsend, he would have pointed out, I used to live there and it was named Hollywood.
In the 1920s in Newcastle with the Depression and things, a lot of unemployment camps, as they were called, were springing up, and I think Hollywood was a bit different and an exception to that, whereas it was an actual community, a village, a little settlement where whole families were living and lived with, some longevity. It wasn't really a transient type sort of settlement, which when you hear of a shanty town, you think of, Depression era and not very long term, whereas Hollywood, to me, seems to be in a very, very different place.
My name's Lachlan Wetherall. My connection with Hollywood is I'm a community historian. I've had an interest in researching that locality. When I moved to Lambton 10 years ago and I got interested in the local history, various people I spoke to had made mention of Hollywood, and particularly come up in the context of mentioning the Two-Up school that was in the bushland nearby. After about a year of writing various historical articles, I did one on Hollywood. One of the things I found at that time was exactly where it was located, because a lot of people just had a vague recollection of, it was over there somewhere. The thing about Hollywood is it was out of town. It was in the gap. It was in between Lambton and Wallsend. So there were no services there. There wasn't any sewerage there, particularly in the early days. There was a water supply in Jesmond Park, which was installed in 1929, but it was just a single tap, and the residents would have had to walk a fair distance to collect that water from that one tap. Obviously no electricity. They would have had to supply their heating needs by just going into the bush, cutting down trees, or just digging out coal from abandoned pits that were there.
My name's Audrey Koosman. I was born in Wallsend, but I went back and lived in Hollywood, went there as a newborn baby, and I left there when I was 8-year-old. I was told when my father came back from the war that there was Crown land offered to people that didn't have a home. I think they just squatted. I think it was more they squatted there on Crown land. You come to Jesmond where the big lights are now there, and you got the hotel and whatnot, and you turned there and went up that road, and you just followed the road, and you done a bit of a sharp left, and you went down into a gully, and then the bush started, and then you went up through the bush track, and then you came to Hollywood. It was up on the hill up there. Lots of our relations and people we knew turned up there too. It was a bit like what you would call a hippie commune now, there's so many people there. But we were a very, very tight community. Even though we were not aunties and uncles, though, we called each other, I called everyone auntie and uncle, because that's how we were. It was a very tight community.
Things weren't always easy growing up in Hollywood, Although Mum and Dad always had money to buy my lunch for school, and it was a community, It was during the Depression, or very, I was there, I was born in 43. Some people squatted, some people might have built their home. That they were good people. If you needed help, the people in Hollywood would be the first ones to help you out.
My father, who was born in 1929, his name was Frank, moved there with his mother and stepfather. I said, what was your living conditions like? He described it as Hessian bags lined with newspaper, but that was all he said. And I just went, wow, how did you live like that? But that was the end of the discussion.